The technician said he's ready for you.
Oh, did he? Oh, okay. All right.
I'll ask, yeah, if you're not here, yeah. What time are you looking to leave?
5.
Okay, I'm going to call the meeting to order. It's 4 o'clock. And can I have roll call, please?
Mayor Crawford,
Here.
Commissioner Blanchard,
Here.
Commissioner Davis,
Here.
Commissioner Hardy,
Here.
Commissioner Ryan.
Here.
And can you please stand for a moment of silence that first the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We don't have any awards or proclamations, so we'll go on to Citizens Forum. Opportunity to come up and speak regarding an item that is not on the agenda. Give your name, address, and no more than 5 minutes.
More than 5 minutes.
All right. Are
Hello.
you?
Barb Shirley, 671 Highlands, Salina, Kansas. First, just real quick, because I know I only have 5 minutes. Congratulations, Kay, on becoming mayor.
Oh,
I'm so proud of you.
finally did. You
yes,
beat me, though.
Yes, but still, I'm so proud of you, and I love seeing you up here. Congratulations, Randall, on your Senate win. We didn't always agree politically, but you will make a fine addition to our state Senate. Absolutely. So, yay. Can I approach you real quick and just pass out something?
No, you can't
It's
approach
not
us.
obscene or anything, I promise. Mr. Hardy.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Former Mayor Blanchard.
Thank you.
Mayor Crawford.
Yes,
There you go.
ma'am.
I didn't center
Oh.
it very well. Typical Barb.
Yeah, it's a little bit
Future Mayor
crooked.
Ryan and future Mayor Davis. There we go. As we all know, Mr. Hardy got elected to Senate, so there will be an appointment made for city commissioner. I know we've had a couple names thrown in the hat. I don't know who else has expressed interest today. I haven't been up with the news today because I've worked all day. But I just want to remind everybody that one of the people that put their names in made some very disgusting remarks about me a couple of years ago, and I did make a photocopy of the newspaper, and that was Mr. Price. And the title of the newspaper editorial is Booty Call in Hip Hop in Salina. To which Mr. Price made comments not only on me being curvy down here, but being curvy up here as well. And it was very derogatory. I'm not going to read the entire thing. I gave it to the commissioners so they can read it. But I do want to mention that 2 weeks later, Ms. Crawford and I were at a chamber event to see Terry Bradshaw. We were waiting in line to meet Mr. Bradshaw. Mr. Price was standing in front of us. He grabbed his camera, started taking pictures of my chest from his phone. To which I told him if he did not remove his phone, I was going to break it. I'm sure Ms. Crawford remembers that.
I do.
So not only did he make derogatory comments about my body in a joint city-county meeting over a health department, he also, at a chamber event, tried to humiliate me by taking pictures of me while I'm waiting in line to meet Mr. Bradshaw, as I was the mayor of the city of Salina. It's very disrespectful, and I think the city of Salina has a lot more integrity than appointing him to commission, and I hope y'all think hard about that, read the article, just a little reminder about who's applied, and I don't want to endorse anybody since I don't know who put their names in today, but I really hope you make the best decision for Salina. Keep your integrity, think about the comments he makes towards women in general, and how he would represent our city. Thank you.
Thank you, Barb. You should have stayed on this commission. Had another woman's on here.
You're outnumbered now.
Yeah, no. I know. Anyone else want to come up? This is talking day. Everybody's going to talk today.
I sent emails to you guys, right? Right, okay.
Did you give your name?
I'm sorry, Judy Larson, 2130 East Crawford.
Okay.
I am a cat person, but I'm also chair of the Animal Shelter Advisory Board. And as such, I am appalled that there is a horse downtown at night that gives carriage rides to people, and he doesn't have a blanket. He has no, protection at all. And it's so cold, at night. And so I called Vanessa at the shelter, and she said there is no city ordinance to help the horse be protected from the weather. And I personally think that someone should have a conversation with his owner to give him a blanket or to give something, have some kind of ordinance or some kind of action for that poor horse. You know, it would be even worse if it were a cat, granted. But this poor horse just sits there, and we really should do something for him. Thank you very
Okay,
much.
thank you, Judy. Anyone else?
Joan Ratzlaff, Salina.
Yeah.
What we were talking about in the study session about the Chamber of Commerce's request kind of opened the door for the Salina Area Workers Coalition to make a comment about this, who I represent. And but the Workers Coalition is a nonpartisan, nonprofit, independent, grassroots, volunteer interest group, and our purpose is to promote the value of working people in our community. Our group supports efforts to change Salina's and Saline County's reputation as a low-wage community. And we feel that one reason that's likely for that status quo that's been going on as long as I've been here, which is only 20 years, is that workers have been an unrepresented but very important stakeholder in those discussions. So there's a lack of some participation and self-determination in the working environment. And so today we just want to begin a discussion to ask that you consider how we include working people in that decision-making process, because we think that better decisions are made when for our community with everyone at the table. And we've got a couple general suggestions, one being when there is tax money involved, that the meetings of the recipient of that tax money be open to the public. And another is that workers be given a voice at the new Salina Community Economic Development Organization, which there was a great article in the paper that sounded very positive, a lot of interesting things that would be really a positive thing to look into further and give workers a voice on. We'd mentioned things like the work environment, and when the chamber is mentioning places like Solomon Corp and Hewitt, those aren't in Salina, so I don't know how relevant those are. And so one of the commissioners mentioned possibly developing a minimum wage for our area. That might be a good idea. Other things mentioned in there was respect. Part of respect is acknowledging the humanity of your employers in things like predictive scheduling. So you know you're going to be working 4 days a week instead of, well, am I going to work this week at all? Is it going to be 2 days next week? That sort of thing. So there's just some small few examples of how workers' voices could be or need to be part of the discussion and decision-making process.
Okay.
Thank you.
Joan.
I'm Pat Milham, and I'm also here representing SOC.
Did you get his name? Do you want to repeat your
Milham.
name to get, please?
Milham, is that correct?
Milham, M-I-L-H-A-M. Okay.
Okay.
At this time, the Salina Area Workers Coalition kindly asks that it be allowed to present some alternatives for the City Commission to consider. Specifically, the Chamber's November 21st presentation included plans to develop some kind of workforce retention slogan that would be printed on billboards, flyers, and postcards. SOC asked that workers' representatives be present at a final slogan is selected. SOC asked that the Salina City Commission approve the final slogan. One way to retain workers is to celebrate them. For years, SOC has hosted a Labor Day event. We seek funding to advertise, promote, and hold this function in 2017. Another way to retain workers is to use local media to promote noteworthy activities. To this end, SOC works with the Salina Journal, KSAL, and Access TV. SOC would like to 1. Promote worker on the street interviews. When asked where they work, many will express pride both in their occupation and their employer. Recognize employers who invest their workers and this community, as well as other activities. Just as the marketing plan will likely come before the Commission, SOC will bring its proposals back to the Commission. The Chamber proposed that its representatives make 4 trips to corporate offices to speak to officials about retaining jobs in this community. SOC asked that the city fund worker representatives at the same amount so that they can either have a seat at the table at these meetings or that they have an opportunity to go to corporate headquarters at that time. The Chamber proposed that just as the Salina Community Economic Development Organization might attend 6 conferences focused on recruiting business and industry, the Chamber's charge to promote business retention suggested to them that the Chamber needed to have seats at the table at the same conference. CEDO will attend. More than money, Salina Area Workers Coalition is asking to have a seat at the Salina Community Economic Development Organization to be able to attend the public segments of the Chamber of Commerce meetings. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Anyone else?
David Norland, 608 East Republic, Salina. I often, in looking at boards and how we operate, commission and otherwise, recognize the importance of having sufficient time for public input while not burdening the commission with a long list of details. And I know that you have sat through some meetings that lasted 10 o'clock to midnight, so you can appreciate that. So I don't want to belabor it, and I recognize that general comments are that there is so much at stake, even in a commission job, but you are looking at the workings of the economy and of citizens on a local level. I'd like to emphasize that I have in mind, I think with you, that there is a real need for worker coordination. We've had 2 excellent presentations about the necessity of recognizing workers and the people who actually do the jobs. And if you want, feel free to call me sometime. I can share a story with you about how that can go askew. I'm not going to bother you with that right now, but I have direct personal connection from a board, not a board, but a volunteer group that I work with within the last week. I'd be glad to share this with you. So, not to belabor it, here, let me come straight to the point. One of my concerns, and the Chamber has partnered with the League of Women Voters in conducting voter forums. They have worked with the Circles of the Heartland, talked with Eric and others about their very good participation in getting workers trained for the jobs that we have here. So my comments are in no way, and I want to emphasize that to demean the Chamber. It's simply that I look at a budgetary matter. And as was pointed out in the study session, the budget is pretty much lined out, and suddenly here's a request for $86,000, which by anybody's pocketbook is a significant sum of money. And there are 2 things that stick out logically to me that I can't quite reconcile. This request is for the next budget year. In the November 21st section, the November meeting, and if I had the date right, there was a discussion about this person not being in place until 6 to 8 months. And, well, what did we do in the interim? We now have that budget director, the economic development director here, ready to start in town, on the ground now. That seems moot. We're budgeting for 12 months out, $86,000 additional dollars, seemingly with no apparent direct coordination. And I understand from talking to some of commissioners and others that there are attempts to do that some are comfortable with that. But it seems pretty opaque, and I'd like to know how these 2 organizations are going to coordinate. I think the public would benefit by knowing that. And one thing, at risk of sounding political, and I don't mean to sound political, but the Chamber is bringing in a speaker whose credentials do not include worker rights, as far as I can tell. whose primary aim, claim, an executive who had a failed company, left that company under those circumstances, whose primary claim to fame appears to be that they were a candidate for the presidency. And I think they're supposed to provide some enlightenment to the community about how we might work economically. The standard salary paid, the chamber doesn't reveal what they pay, but that speaker is on average paid about $50,000, $49,000, $45,000 in that vicinity. And I know that those costs are offset by contributions. But $50,000 is a lot of money for an organization that's asking for $86,500. And I'm just trying to make budgetary sense of this. There may well be compromises, and again, I think it's important to have a partnership. But this sudden request for $86,500 troubles me budgetarily on a couple of levels, and I hope that you will consider that. I understand that you will be looking at that. So I appreciate your consideration on a number of levels, that things that I didn't hear raised in the study session. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Anyone else? Okay. We'll go ahead with consent agenda.
Item 6.1, approve the minutes of December 5th, 2016. Item 6.2, approve resolution number 16-7419, appointing members to various boards and commissions. Item 6.3, approve resolution number 16-7418, describing the corporate limits of the city of Salina. Item 6.4, award contract for scoreboard improvements at Dean Evans and James Matson Fields to Heineken Electric in the amount of $92,500. 6.5, approve the purchase and installation of the upgrade of radio consoles for the Emergency Communications Center to Commercial Electronics in the amount of $25,857.90, utilizing 911 funds. Item 6.6, authorize the purchase of 5 remote telemetry units at 4 booster pump stations and 1 well, project number 63100, from R.E. Pedrati Company, Inc. of Mission, Kansas, and the amount of $97,835. And 6.7, accept and authorize the 2017 sub-CIP, authorizing staff to solicit bids and proposals as required by city policy.
Okay, is there any item under consent agenda a commissioner wants pulled for questions?
I just have a quick question on 6.3, because it just might be a blue sheet. I will confess I did not read through the entire legal description of the city of Salina to see if this was on here. But in the blue sheet, it mentions that the Ryan Addition, 28 acres, South Ohio Street right-of-way, and Riverwoods Nature. Did we not do a second reading for the Expo Center land that was annexed in, or did we just do a first reading on that, or Dean would know?
That Ryan Addition and South Ohio and the County Expo Center were all annexed into the city. And then we had one little gap in front of the Baldwin's property that we came back and added. But all of those properties are within the city limits and should be reflected in the corporate resolution.
Okay. So it's not in the 90 or 109 acres or whatever the county property was. It wasn't on the blue sheet.
Right, but it is included.
It is in this.
Yes.
Okay, I did not read through the 20-page legal description of the city.
I think
Okay, super.
whoever authored
We could
that
walk
was
that if you like.
Well, no, that's okay. I didn't want to pull it up. I just wanted to ask.
one of the things that we did timing-wise, that we made sure we had first and second reading on Riverwoods and brought it into the city before we did this boundary resolution.
Right,
So,
okay.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Okay. I'll accept it.
Motion to
Move
approve
to,
motion to
right.
approve the consent agenda. Second.
Motion to approve the consent agenda. It's been seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Same sign. Okay. Administration?
Item 7.1, first reading ordinance number 16-10871, adopting Salina Code Section 20-20 pertaining to criminal history record information.
Michelle,
Mayor, Commissioners, thank you.
you're in charge of criminals?
I am in charge of the city clerk's office, and the city clerk's office is required to do criminal background checks for 8 different categories of licenses before being able to issue the license. That background check has to be completed by a criminal justice agency. It's not something that city staff can do. Currently, we have some ordinances in place that KBI will accept and allow us to run checks for free on 5 of these categories. We've been paying $20 per person for the other 3 categories. Shandy did a little bit of research and found out that if we would update our code to specifically identify these 8 categories, they would allow us to have these background checks completed for free. So that should save us about $1,500 a year.
Oh, and Shandy?
That's it.
All right. Any questions, Michelle? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Need a motion and a second, or a motion on ordinance number 16-10871?
I move that we adopt ordinance number 16-10871 as proposed.
Second.
I have a first and an amendment, first and a second on ordinance number 16-10871. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Okay. 7.2.
Item 7.2, request approval to execute a compliance agreement with the current owners of 255 North Columbia to renovate and repair a dangerous structure.
Mr. Hobby?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mayor and Commissioners, tonight we have a little unusual situation to bring back to you. As you remember, about a year ago, we started the process on dangerous structures within our community, and we had several dangerous structures we brought to you, and we walked through the process and making sure that the structure was dangerous by doing a checklist, which is included in your blue sheet. We also took pictures of the property and gone through the proper notices. We found out about a month ago that the county commissioners were setting this property on a tax sale, and so we made sure that the appropriate information was sent to any and all eligible parties who would like to bid on this property, as the county tried to regain their back taxes and regain their back taxes. Actually, the property did go to tax sale. It was purchased by Mr. and Mrs. Chris Helm, and they have decided they would like to renovate the property at 255 North Columbia. Since this has already come to you as a demolition as a dangerous structure within our community, we would then ask that you would allow us to remove this structure from our dangerous structures list, but also do a compliance agreement where Mr. Helm would have a short period of time to complete the renovations of the items that were specifically called out that would take this structure off our dangerous structures list, then allow him a few extra months to finish the renovation of the property and put it back into good condition and usable and rentable for him. The Helms have bought several properties over the last year and have been diligently working on various properties that we have seen in the community and have been very thankful they've done that. So we feel like it's an opportunity for us to save the cost of a demolition of one property in the community and also put it back into livable condition sometime in 2017. So we would ask that you approve the execution of the compliance agreement, allow us to complete that process, and then eventually take this house off the dangerous structures list. I'd be more than glad to stand for any questions.
Any questions of Mr. Hobby? Okay. Bring it back to the commission for action.
Madam Mayor, move we approve the compliance agreement with the current owners of 255 North Columbia to renovate and repair the dangerous structure.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve execution of a compliant agreement with the current owners of 255 North Columbia and to renovate and repair and to take off the renovation and repair dangerous structure list. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Okay. Move on to development business.
Item 8.1, resolution number 16-7420, authorizing the mayor to execute a license agreement with Jeffrey and Tamara Harris to allow an existing fence located at 340 South Broadway to remain in the public right-of-way of Broadway Boulevard.
Okay, Mr. Andrew.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. This is an application filed by Jeffrey Harris to allow an existing fence that's in the front yard at 340 South Broadway to remain in the public right-of-way. This particular area of the community developed in the late 1970s and mid-1980s. There's a shop on the corner that was originally built by Mr. Darrell Sutton to house his vacuum and sewing machine service business, and it's been through several owners since that time, but staff was recently reviewing a sign permit application to put a monument sign in the Broadway Boulevard front yard. We were able to confirm that the monument sign was in the private property side of the line, but we determined at that time that a wood rail fence, which looks like this, the property line is about here, so the fence extends 4 to 5 feet into the public right-of-way. We looked into the origin of the fence. There was no fence permit applied for or issued at the time, but the fence appears to date back to shortly after Mr. Sutton opened the shop. We did not have the authority, once we became aware of the fence encroaching, to allow that situation to remain, since we have relocated or removed other fences in the right-of-way along Broadway Boulevard. So Mr. Harris was given the options to remove or relocate the fence or request City Commission approval for a license agreement. That is what he has done, and he points out that the fence has been there for nearly 30 years without seemingly causing any conflicts. The one thing that we would point out is that while there are currently no conflicts, one of the advantage of having a license agreement in place is it does document the situation, and it does subordinate the owner's rights to the public's need for the right-of-way space. So if we have a sidewalk project or a walking path project or an intersection project and the fence becomes a impediment to that, the owner is obligated to remove it at their expense at that time. But the request is to allow the fence as currently installed to remain in place as is in the right-of-way in front of their shop. So with that, I'd be open to any questions that you have.
Questions?
I'm not for building walls or fences, but this one looks okay to me.
Looks good, he said.
It has been a well-maintained fence over time.
It has, I agree.
It has.
And it,
I think I read in the lease agreement that if this building were to go to a new owner, then the right to have the fence in the right-of-way would continue?
yes, it would run with the land, as would the obligation to remove it if it conflicted with a future public project. So the idea is that this agreement, when executed, would be recorded in the Register of Deeds office, and then it would run with the land.
Okay. Bring it back to the commission.
Thank you.
for action.
Madam Mayor, I move approval of resolution number 16-7420 with Jeffrey and Tamara Harris to allow an existing fence located at 340 South Broadway to remain in the public right-of-way of Broadway Boulevard.
I have one comment. On page 2 of the agreement, number 5, section A, there's a word R, and I think it should be area instead.
Okay. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Okay. You can check on that typographical-like spec.
Could you give me that, what section again? 5A?
5A, yeah.
Discontinuing?
The word
Yeah,
R
use
should,
of the licensed area in A, it says R, it should be area, but
I think
Okay.
so.
we will get that fixed. Thank you.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to pass Resolution 167420. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Okay. Other business.
Other business. Madam Mayor, I have a request. I talked earlier today with the city manager about the possibility of scheduling our meeting for January 9th to begin at 5 p.m. versus 4 p.m. That would allow some of us to attend the swearing-in ceremony for our newly elected colleague to the state senate. And if that is something that we can do and doesn't cause any grief, I would certainly appreciate the opportunity to attend that ceremony and then allow anyone else here to attend that as well. So I don't know what, I guess I'm asking my
9th
colleagues
of
here
January?
to, if we can do that, if it's legally, if we're legally able to do that, could we do that?
And I touched base with Greg Binkson, your legal counsel here right beside me, and you set your time by resolution. You don't set it by ordinance. And the question was, would you have the discretion and authority as a governing body to modify the time as long as you stated that early? And we continue to remind the public what the notice is, and the answer was yes, you could. So we feel pretty comfortable if you want to do that. That's really a decision that you can make. And if you tell us you want to do that, we'll make sure the notice for that meeting states as much.
Is that all right with everybody? We can have concurrence? Okay. Commissioner Ryan says okay?
Yeah.
Commissioner
Absolutely. Do we
Davis?
need to make a
If
motion?
you could, given there is a formality to the meeting, if you could do that by motion, I think. And if you're going to do that, in order to take you from one formality to the other, you probably wouldn't want to make a motion to add that to your agenda and then take action on it. That would be best.
Okay, great. If now would be the appropriate time, I would move that we add to today's agenda an item to consider rescheduling the beginning time of the regularly scheduled meeting of January 9th, 2017, from 4 p.m. to 5 p.m.
Okay.
Second.
Second. Okay, there's a motion and a second to move the 9th of January, time of the meeting from 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock.
Right, we're just going to, this motion would, my motion was simply to add that item to the agenda.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Okay. We're adding that item to the agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Okay,
Okay.
now.
Probably
now-
good to go ahead and take
Remake
that up
your-
now, Greg, and then go back to other business?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, and so, Madam Mayor, I would move that we reschedule our January 9th, 2017 regular City Commission meeting to begin at 5 p.m.
Okay, motion and a second to
Discussion.
reschedule our
I'm sorry.
meeting on the 9th of January from 4 to 5 o'clock.
Is there a study session scheduled for that day?
No.
Probably not yet.
I guess not.
I can't tell you, but we will definitely make sure not to have a study
There isn't
session
now,
scheduled
yeah.
for that day.
Right, because
I think
that would have to
defeat
be
the purpose,
rescheduled as
yeah.
well.
Right.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank
okay.
you.
Good question.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay,
Okay.
I thank you all very much.
and that's your big day.
I know. It'll be
What time
exciting.
is it?
2 o'clock
2. Okay, well,
in
I'm
the
not going to
Senate
say I'm
chamber.
going to make it, but I might.
And I appreciate staff looking at that quickly because I know that we'll want to make sure that anybody that would want to be at this meeting doesn't come at 4 p.m. So, thank you.
Mayor,
Okay, now we're,
Takes you back to other business?
I had one other, more of an announcement, under other business, but wanted to wait to be sure all commissioners had had an opportunity to address any other business they might wish, other than the executive session.
That sounds like we're staying a long time.
it does.
If
I'm done.
Anyone?
no one else had anything,
I don't think so.
okay, thank you. Wanted, since you all last met, wanted to let you all know that in the case, the Board of County Commissioners of Saline County versus the City of Salina,
Judge William Elliott, the assigned judge in that case, did enter his ruling, and in doing so determined that the city does not have any discretion in the adoption of the ordinance called for under KSA 12-520F. And in doing so, and if I may, I'll read briefly so as not to paraphrase the court's determination. The ruling is that the county's request for declaratory judgment, an injunction, and an order of mandamus is granted. The governing body of the city shall forthwith certify by ordinance that the county's certification is correct, and the city shall declare the highways or portions of the highways extending to the center line where another city boundary line abuts the opposing side of the highways annexed to the city as of the date of the publication of this ordinance. I don't expect that the schedule will allow us to discuss this in executive session today as far as your options are concerned, but we do want to be sure. Statute allows 30 days for determination as to whether the city would wish to either take the action or potentially appeal the matter to the Court of Appeals. Given this holiday schedule, we're going to have to pay close attention to that schedule. So as the order was entered on the 7th, so it's a fairly narrow window that we'll need to address that. So wanted to make sure that we were conscious of the need to do that and to let you know that that was the district court determination in that case. So thank you.
If I could, Mayor, I have two really quick items. One is it goes back to the concern about horses that Ms. Larson brought up, and with the technology, I'm able to, I think, help her out. I'm not a horse expert, but the first hit I have is University of Minnesota Extension, and it indicates that in the absence of wind and moisture, most horses can tolerate temperatures at down to 0 degrees. But that they, and if they have shelter, it can be even as much as -40. But the most important part is that most horses, it says, are comfortable at temperatures between 18 and 59 degrees Fahrenheit, depending on their hair code. So hopefully that satisfies the concern. I couldn't have told you otherwise. But as long as we're not below that 18, that real low range, we should be okay with that. So hopefully that's helpful for you. The other thing is it had to do with the earlier comment about the SCEDO appointments. Just a reminder for you, because you may be familiar, you may recall, but you may not, in that those appointments for the board are set up by the 4 entities, and you do have staggered appointments there. The city has 3 appointments. The other 3 entities have 2 each, and that certainly any entity can appoint whomever they want. You wouldn't typically take any form of an interest group and say that the group has a seat, because you'll never balance. It's a problem. But the fact is any entity can appoint whomever they want to that seat when their appointment opportunity comes up. So thought I'd just give you the quick context of that for you. That's it.
Thank you. Okay.
I have a quick question on the action on the suit. Would the response that would we need to make a response through resolution if we chose to appeal, and we would need do nothing if we choose not to appeal? Is that how that?
Yes, is the short answer. Certainly any appeal would need to be authorized by the governing body, and whether by motion or resolution would be the ways to do that. Otherwise, if there's a determination not to appeal, we obviously want to comply with the court's order promptly, and of course staff would prepare you to be able to do that.
Okay. Because outside of next Monday, we have no other meetings that fall within that 30-day.
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
I think you mentioned at one point maybe that a lot of these cases are determined at the appellate level. Is that correct?
Well, that was actually Judge Elliott spoke to that, and I believe it was his remarks were covered in the news report following oral argument, where he observed that generally constitutional questions, which we raised a constitutional challenge as the statute being an unconstitutional delegation of legislative authority that otherwise rests with the city in matters of annexation. that was a matter generally addressed at the appellate courts level, whether it be the Court of Appeals or the Kansas Supreme Court. And I think that's generally the case when dealing with constitutional questions.
Okay.
Madam Mayor,
Are we
move.
ready for, executive
I think we
session?
are. Move to
Anybody else
recess
have anything else? No?
into executive session for 60 minutes to discuss with legal counsel matters subject to the attorney-client privilege for the reason that public discussion of those matters would waive the privilege and adversely affect the city's interest in the matters, and for the purpose of discussing matters pertaining to non-elected city personnel for the reason that public discussion of the matter would violate the privacy rights of the non-elected personnel involved, and reconvene at 5:45 p.m.
Okay. Is there a second to that?
Second. Sorry. Nobody's really that enthusiastic.
Nobody's too enthusiastic. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. There might be several opposed.
Commissioners, for the public's benefit and the media's, we do not expect you to come out and take any action.
Okay.